Well. Welcome to the Phightins Final here on the Edge of Philly Sports Network with your boy Matty B, and joining me again for the second time this week, I believe, Joe the Hammer Marks from the Patterson Fanatics. Right, you can see here on the Edge of Philly Sports every Saturday morning at 9. Joe, what is going on? Good evening, and welcome back again.
Thank you very much. I'm pulling double duty a little bit tonight, and then back up early tomorrow for a big cup of coffee for breakfast with the boys.
Well, Joe, you're not going to find any sympathy here. All right,
Oh,
I
I
just came off
understand.
the air about 20 minutes ago. Here I
I
am back
understand.
on. So it's a grind that we all must
Yep.
participate in. But no,
Yep.
I'm really glad that you're here with me, and I anticipate an outstanding show tomorrow from you guys. We are like 24 hours away or so, or 36 hours away from the biggest letdown in Philadelphia Eagles sports history, and you guys are going to be bringing it, the last word, I guess, on EOP with it.
Eagles Eve. It's gonna be amazing.
It is, but we got some baseball to talk about because this is the Phightins final. And tonight at the bank, the Phillies handled their business 5-3. They welcomed the Nationals, and they promptly did what they had to do. I guess a theme now with the Phillies. They're not going big, they're not going large. They're just doing what they got to do. And tonight, Noah Syndergaard, who I think, and this is just my opinion, his best effort as a Philly since he's been here. Very effective. Not great, but very effective. I don't know if we're going to get much more from Noah Syndergaard than we did tonight. What was your opinion on Thor tonight? Were you happy to see him kind of stabilize a little bit tonight?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
was,
was,
but
but
I'll be honest. Like, this is a guy who, just like Gibson, kind of worries me because, I mean, granted, these guys are going to be probably gone off this team in a month or two, but it worries me for a stretch because this guy doesn't show the poise that I felt like we thought we were going to get with the Thor. And look, don't get me wrong. I know we weren't going to get the Thor from the New York Mets. I knew that, but I did expect, because he was a veteran, that he would have a little bit more poise and control with certain situational pitching. And I think that's where he struggles. Is like once he gets men on base, he kind of turns his attention away from the batter and kind of turns more of his attention to the runner. Whereas, as many people have alluded to, the out is in front of you, not behind you. You got to take care of the batter versus taking care of the runner. So I do think he'll be a serviceable arm if we're looking at a 3-4 man rotation in the playoffs. I would not count on Noah Syndergaard being in that 3 or 4 man rotation.
See, I kind of disagree, Joe. I got to give the guy a little bit. I mean, he's 1 year off of Tommy John. His first year back from Tommy John. It's a 2-year process, and I think that the product you're seeing of him right now. You're right, though. You're absolutely correct about the Mets comparison. He's not that pitcher. I don't think he ever will be that pitcher again. But I still think he's a very serviceable 4 or 5. I do.
Mm.
Obviously, if we want to put him anywhere, I mean, I think everybody kind of thought he was the replacement for Zach Eflin because that's obviously one of the reasons why they went out and got him because of the injury to Eflin. But I knew going in that he wasn't necessarily going to be that number 3. Unfortunately, we have a 1, a 2, and a bunch of 4s, and maybe a 5, and 4s and 5s. We don't have a 3 right now. So, but I disagree. I would not, with the potential of arms we have coming up in the future within the next year or two. I'll sign Syndergaard to a 1 or 2 year deal, bring him back next year, throw him into that 4 hole vacated by Kyle Gibson because I'm not bringing him back. But I'd bring back Syndergaard for a year. Why not, man? I mean, he knows how to win. He does, and he's just going to get stronger. That arm will get stronger. He's going to figure out how to pitch with less velocity and more pinpoint control. So I kind of disagree with you there.
I mean, listen, there's 1 or 2 ways that this normally goes for pitchers that have had Tommy John. Either they lose so much velocity once they are healed after that 2 years, they lose so much velocity off their pitches that they no longer have that ace up their sleeve anymore.
Yeah.
There aren't any pitchers built like a Jamie Moyer anymore, where they know how to like pitch to a spot, and they rely heavily, super heavily on velocity.
Right.
And that's the problem with Tommy John is like once you have it, there's a reason why this philosophy in the minors has gone around for the last couple years that if a pitcher even shows any kind of inkling that they are having shoulder issues, that they would automatically recommend Tommy John, even if it wasn't necessary per se, because they would want to get them over that issue. Because once you have Tommy John, like it's meant to fix it, and you never really have to go through another Tommy John surgery. That's kind of the point. That's why it takes so long to recover. But preventative medicine isn't always good practice, standards in practice for minor league management, especially when you're talking about high level talent that could be possibly coming up and in a big investment in for a organization. No, here's the thing with Syndergaard. I do think he's got a good. Would I re-sign him? Yeah, if the price was right, for sure. I am with you that Gibson's done. He's kind of served his purpose. But I don't know what we're going to get with Eflin. I do think Bailey Falter is going to get a bigger role on this team.
Yeah.
What that looks like next season, I don't know. I think he may even get a bigger role even closer to the postseason, not necessarily as a starter, but God forbid we get into a situation where we just need a long reliever. He's a very serviceable guy in that.
Well, from your lips to Walter's fingertips, as he's chiming in with he expects Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin or Gibson in the playoffs, and either Falter, Noah, and Ranger in middle relief. So I think that's kind of I kind of agree with that. I agree with you too on that. I definitely see that. And as to go to your point about Falter having a more expanded role with this team next season, absolutely. I think we talked about this the other night. And I said that I think there's just about 100% chance that Falter will make the team out of spring training. I'm not Painter and Abel. I'm not in any hurry. They don't need to be here in Philadelphia. I think one of them will probably be here at the end of next season, and then Painter will be here probably in 24. But you give them some time to kind of ripen down there in AAA. I'm not going to get all on that bandwagon right now. Their day is coming.
I don't know the name off the top of my head, but there is a pitcher already up in AAA that they're already talking about between him, Abel, and Painter. Three possible guys that are going to find a role on this team in spring training next year as pitchers.
Oh yeah, they'll all go to camp. They'll all be invited to camp. Yeah, and you'll see them pitching in the spring. Yeah, and it'll be pretty fun to watch. Hopefully, I'm there live watching that. I want to go down there and do that. But anyway, Joe, we're getting way off topic, man. We got a game to talk about. We're talking about the spring and the off season. We're not even, we haven't even gotten to the postseason.
We're still in the playoff hunt, man. Right. Let's go.
Not are we not in the playoff hunt? We're actually in a playoff position. And tonight, we welcome in the lowly Washington Nationals, who we're trying to continue to feast on that low-hanging fruit, so to speak. And let's get right to the line, Joe. The Nationals would finish with 3 runs on 10 hits, no errors. Phillies 5 runs, 13 hits, and no errors. Ball was being hit all over the yard, but not many runs being scored. And here's how it all did go down. Dalton Guthrie, the newest Philly, who was called up earlier in the week, would get the scoring going for the Phillies in the bottom of the third when he would knock in Mr. September himself, Edmundo Sosa, to make it 1-0 Phillies. Sosa had tripled in the previous at-bat as he continues his torrid pace over the last week. I believe now he is 6 for his last, or he was at that point 6 for his last 6. I don't know how he finished the rest of the night.
He was 7 for 7, and then he hit into a double play. So then it was 7 of 8.
Wasn't J Rose 8 for 8? Wasn't that the record for the team?
Yeah, and Kruk jinxed them a little.
Yeah, I heard him. That's why I knew the stat to begin with. Reese then would get things going in the bottom of the fourth, where you reverse mushed him. He would homer, making it 2-0 Phillies, and then JT would knock in Alec Boehm a little later in that inning to give the Phillies a 3-0 lead, and all was looking good until the top of the fifth when Lane Thomas would triple in, Riley Adams would make it 3-1, and then Luis Garcia would knock in Lane Thomas. 3-2 Phillies heading into the bottom of the sixth when JT would answer the bell in a beautiful home run, opposite field shot for JT Realmuto, make it 4-2. Alex Call would make it interesting for the Nationals in the top of the seventh, making it 4-3. And then Dalton Guthrie would get on with an infield single, knocking in Bryson Stott, and that is how you would finish the game. 5-3 Phillies. On the number side, individually, here's our boy Kyle Schwarber, 1-for-4. No strikeouts tonight, but he did ground to a double play. Rhys Hoskins, 1-for-4 with that homer and an RBI. Alec Bohm, 1-for-4 with a run. JT, 3-for-3, and I'm going to give him my offensive MVP for the night. 1 run, 2 RBIs, and a homer. Gene Segura, 1-for-4. Bryson Stott, 1-for-4. Matt Verling, 1-for-4. Edmundo Sosa, Mr. September himself, 2-for-3 with a run. And then Dalton Guthrie in his Phillies debut as a starter, 2-for-3 with 2 RBIs, was a close second for offensive MVP. And on the national side, Lane Thomas, 2-for-4. Luis Garcia, 1-for-4. CJ Abrams, who I think is going to be a stud in this league. He was 1-for-4 with a stolen base. And that's pretty
much.
He
had a great defensive play, too.
Yeah, he did. And this kid's just got it all. And that was a hell of a trade. Man, that was a good move. On the pitching standpoint, the Phillies, Noah Syndergaard, as we talked a little bit, 6 strong, 8 hits, 3 runs. All of them were earned. He did strike out 2. Bellotti, Alvarado, Hand, and then Nick Nelson would come on and get the save. And we're going to talk about the bullpen here in a second. He gets the save after pitching a third of an inning. On the national side, Corbin gets the loss, 6-18 now in the year. He went 6.5, 12 hits. All of his 5 runs were earned. He struck out 2 and gave up 2 homers. Ramirez came in and pitched an inning in a third as well. And that's how you got your 5-3 victory tonight. Joe Marks, let's get into this. And it's a topic we talked about before we went on the air, and that is the Phillies bullpen. A very strange beast, so to speak. The beginning of the season, just a dreadful, dreadful group. Kind of just fallen suit in what's been happening over the last couple seasons. But they figured themselves out. I don't know if it was the manager change or if it was everyone says that Thompson gave them roles. That was the main thing that got the bullpen back together, that they had a role, they had a set role of what they were going to do. But I don't personally see, and we talked about this specifically, the role of closer. Who is the closer on the Philadelphia Phillies? Obviously, it's Sir Anthony who's rehabbing. Is he really going to be the closer? Or is it this closer by committee if 2 is available? Joe, help me understand what Rob Thompson's doing with the bullpen.
I mean, listen, I believe that it should be Sir Anthony. I've said that for a while now. Even when we brought in Knebel, and that's the other thing is you have 2 big pieces that are missing out of this bullpen. So I mean that means something, but with all the pieces we have there, it should still be a more than serviceable and more than consistent bullpen. And I get it. People are saying, oh, they're getting overused. And yeah, well, we're in a long stretch. My feeling is with Sir Anthony, he's the closer. And I've always believed that. He always had closer stuff. He always had the ability to go against the heart of the opponent's order. I go back to the Cardinals series and how Thompson put him in the 8th instead of the 9th because you had the heart of that order coming up that could do real damage, and he just wanted to silence it, and he did. And I think when you miss a piece like a Sir Anthony or like a Knebel or like these key cogs, it throws all the rotation off. And I think Rob Thompson's just looking out at the bullpen saying, does anybody want to raise their hand that wants to play closer tonight? And, they draw straws. I don't know, but there's no logic to this. You had Nick Nelson pitch a third of an inning. He's a long relief bullpen arm. And you had him pitch a third of an inning in the 9th inning. It just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. If you can figure it out, there's a lot of scientists in MIT that are waiting for your phone call.
So this kind of smacks a little bit, and I hate to say it, but it kind of smacks a little bit of Joe Girardi because last night, David Robertson was making his 3rd appearance in 3 nights, and obviously he didn't have the arm strength to get the job done. The Phillies missed a great opportunity in sweeping out the Marlins. and they couldn't. You know, what's going on with Rob Thompson? I'm seeing a lot more of Rob Thompson's face in a lineup card and in a binder lately too, Joe. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing there. Is it the mystique of the analytics? Is it like a drug? Does it like lure you in and then grab a hold of you and does not let you go? What is going on, man? I thought we finally got our let's manage by the gut type of guy. Are you seeing that? Are you concerned that he's slipping into Analyticville?
Sometimes when you struggle, you try and find anything to rectify it. And I think for him, he feels like his gut's letting him down. We all got to remember something. Rob Thompson has never been a manager in the major leagues. This is his first time doing this. He's always been like on the bench and someone else has been calling the shots. It is the first time Rob Thompson is calling the shots. And for what it's worth, I mean, that is a big, big ask of a guy like that, right? And he's done excellent. We can all admit that. But with him in his position, when things start to, completely spiral, when you lose close game like Marlins game, when you get blown out in the West Coast, things start to look different for him. And he goes, okay, wait a minute, this isn't the way things were going before. And so he starts questioning his own skills. And when you start questioning your own skills and you still need to rectify a problem, you start reaching for things that everyone else is using. It's as though, he felt like, oh, I got this. I'm doing so well with my gut. So I'll keep doing it. And the minute that failed him, he went back to his crutch, which is that binder. I swear to God, if I'm ever going to go to Citizens Bank Ballpark, I'm going to get the trash can, I'm going to get the binder, I'm going to get lighter fluid, and I'm going to light that sucker up because
Uh, yeah,
I just don't like it anymore. I really don't.
it is a source of contention for a lot of people. Joe, let's take a look at some out of town scores because it was a interesting night in Major League Baseball. Obviously, we're going to focus on the games that pertain to our Philadelphia Phillies. The Milwaukee Brewers are getting it absolutely handed to them as we speak. Heading to the bottom of the ninth, they are down 8-2 at home against Cincinnati. Looking like we're going to get back to that 3.5 game buffer between us and the Brewers after kind of losing some ground over them yesterday. On out west in Seattle, the Braves they're up 3-2 over the Mariners in the top of the fourth. Really good series. That's actually a really good series, Braves and Mariners. And in San Diego, the Dodgers are up 1-0 in the top of the second. Some of the games that went complete that are definitely of Philly interest. The Giants lost to the Cubs tonight 4-2. The Cardinals lost to the Pirates 8-2. And the stinking New York Mets fell to the Miami Marlins 6-3, Joe Mark. So if things work out right now, if we go to bed tonight and say the Braves hold on and take care of their business, the Braves will go back into first place in the NL East by a half a game, dropping the Mets into that second wild card position or that first wild card position, which would mean if the season were to end tomorrow, we would be in New York for the 3-game series between the Phillies and Mets in the wild card series, which would be Christmas in September or sorry in October for me if you're asking me. And our boy Serdar comes back on. If we were to give Matt a true serum, he would be rooting hard for the Mets to win the division. I know he doesn't want to face angry Met team in the first round of the playoffs. Serdar, you can't be more off of what you're trying to say. I would actually welcome the idea of a Mets Phillies first round playoff series. And I told you, PhillySportsTrips.com. Are you listening to me out there? If that happens, we got some work to do in a little period of time to do it in. So hopefully that does happen.
Me and Al have already talked about this, and he's already in contact with Vince. We've already got this situated that if this happens and falls in the line, Philly invades Queens. And that's the way it's going down.
Payback is a bitch.
And let's just understand something. So you guys beat us in the regular season. That's nice. But when it matters is in the playoffs.
That's all that matters.
That's when it matters.
Yeah. Sardar also says, yeah, I know he would be rooting hard for the Mets if we play the Braves in the playoffs because I'm sure he hates the Braves more than the Mets. I'm sure you're wrong, Sardar. I can't stand the Mets. The Mets are on Dallas Cowboy territory with me. I mean, they're treading in that same path. So I hate the Mets more than not more than the Dallas Cowboys, but just around the same amount.
I
Of
don't like the Braves, but I respect them.
yeah.
Like that's the thing is I don't have to like them, but I respect them. Like I remember Glavin and Maddox and Chipper Jones and all those guys how they dominated in the 90s. So believe me, I don't like the Braves, but I respect them. The Mets on the other hand, I can't stand them.
Yeah. I mean, wow, Sardar's in rare form tonight, man. For a guy whose team just lost to the Marlins and is now not in first place, probably again. Except for Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, no one in the Phillies scares me. None of the pitchers scare me because against the Mets, none of the Philly really look too impressive. Listen, I don't. You're probably not watching the Phillies lately, but Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber are nothing really to be kind of intimidated about right now. And listen, it takes a team effort, Sardar. If you're so not scared, then why are you like scared? Because it sounds like you're kind of scared to me, but whatever. We'll get to October. Don't worry, we'll get to you. You
I,
got
I
to one
will
step at a
I
time.
will add something in though, Matt. Like you brought up the Atlanta Seattle score, and to be honest, like I would say give Seattle another year or two, and they're going to be a dark horse.
Now they're a good
I,
team. They're a good.
yeah, they're going to be a dark horse in the AL, and that's the thing is when the Braves struggle with those teams, or when any like team that's in the playoff hunt struggles with those teams, you know that there's some uh, good skilled talent on those underdog teams. That's one of the reasons why like the Giants they hit that precipice of like 100+ wins last year, and then they were like, "Yeah, okay, we'll just let people go." It's like, okay, if you don't care, then don't care. But see, and this is where I'll chime in with the Mets to compare it with the Mets. Both New York teams, you guys still haven't figured it out completely. You just can't buy talent. You have to buy. You can purchase talent and you can put it on your team, but it has to work. And that's the difference. When the Yankees were dominant, it's because it worked. Because they brought in Jeter, they brought in A-Rod, but they didn't just bring in those guys. They brought them in and built the team around them. That's different than just going out and buying like specific players. Good for you. You guys got like, the polar bear. Good for you. But outside of him, you don't have any homegrown talent. You're just buying players. And honestly, good luck with trying to find that Jeter and A-Rod or that pairing or duo or triplets that will help you get to the promised land. Because I can promise you this, and I said this last time, this will not be a Subway Series. Neither New York team will make the World Series.
I kind of agree. Walter says Nats just beat the Mets 2 out of 3 and split 2 out of 4 with the Cardinals. Can't take them lightly. I agree with you. This is a professional team.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Walter. No one's sitting here kind of talking down to the Nationals. They got some good young talent, but the Phillies they are a better team, and the Phillies are on a mission supposedly, and they got to win these games. These are the games they need to win. They're divisional games, and their games they are low hanging fruit type games. It's going to get amped up again starting next week. We got 7 left with the Braves, 7 games that could go a long way in deciding this division. I'm still not giving up the idea that the Phillies might win the NL East. I'm not, but but you're right. We one game at a time, and you don't want to overlook the Nationals. Now, I don't understand this at all. Dave Yarnell, he's excellent. They went 1-5 on the West Coast trip. That's excellent. LOL. Great job. Skip on the fly. What the hell is he talking about?
I wish I could tell. He's basically saying don't get your hopes so high, um,
But who's he?
because we went 1-5 on the West Coast.
Yeah, but he said
It,
he. Who's he?
mm, Dave is a very unique person in so many ways.
Dave,
Um,
if you could encrypt or de-encrypt your message to me, that would be great. I'd appreciate it.
I still, we're investigating, and on the Patterson F Fanatics is that, we know Dave's a Cowboys fan. We're investigating whether he's a Mets fan. That is a deep seated investigation going on right now.
Yeah, I heard one on the Gobbler's been opened up as well about the Mets. I heard that.
Yeah, and listen, I get it. You're used to seeing them, but I have disdain, like not even subtle disdain. I have outright gross disdain for the New York Mets and their fan base. And I don't mind saying it outwardly. Like, you can get Keith Hernandez to mention me on the telecast. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Um, for me, it's about two things with this team and winning these games. Yes, the Nationals. Okay, so the Nationals out of the last 25 games are 12-13. After they traded Juan Soto, they were 2-8. So yes, they're turning it around. Yes, they are a sneaky team. However, we said this on the last time I was on. This team is treating every game as serious as it can be. Game 7 of a playoff series.
They should be treating it. We don't really know if they are, but they should be. Yes,
right. And that's the thing. But even when you're facing the Nationals, those lowly Nationals, you still have to treat it that validated. You still have to validate it that way, because regardless if it's the Nationals or if it's the Astros or if it's the Braves, you still have to go in front of those guys and produce. I mean, I go back to that game yesterday was winnable, and it should have been won. And yes, I'm a reverse mush for tonight, but I wasn't one last night. Reese is not going to be on this team next year, and that's part of the reason.
We can all
is
hope.
He's a liability in the field.
He is. He is, and we have too many DHs on this team as it is. We don't need another one.
Right. And God, I can't believe I'm saying this. When Reese is more of a liability at first base than Ryan Howard was, good grief.
We've reached a different low. Walter says he thinks that Dave's talking about Rob Thompson. Maybe, Walter, but only Dave ultimately knows what Dave is talking about. So let's take a look at tomorrow, because we're going to get this thing flipped back around quickly, as we typically do in Major League Baseball. 6:05 start tomorrow at the bank. Eric Fetty takes his 6-9, 5.08 ERA, and Ranger Suarez will oppose him at 8-5, 3.52. That is 6-5 or 6:05 at the bank. First pitch. And another must-win game. I guess we're going to pretty much be saying about that all the games this point out. Joe, listen, I got to run, but before I go, we got to talk about something, because it's kind of a hot topic in baseball right now. Some rule changes were approved for next season, and they're interesting rule changes, and I want to get your take on it. We were talking again a little bit before we went on the air. The first rule is they are going to implement a pitch clock next season. And it's interesting that I've been to a few minor league games, and they've been running a pitch clock down there, but nobody they don't enforce it. It's just a clock that's running, and then I don't know if they've been taking data off of it or what, but I guess next season there's going to be a timer, and essentially it's going to go like this. So between pitches there'll be a 15-second timer, right? When the bases are empty, there's going to be a 20-second timer, and when the bases 15-second when the bases are empty, and 20-second when there's runners on base, right? So, also it's going to limit the throws to first, right? To what is it? Which
3.
Three
Three
throws to
attempts.
first. Yes. Now, what do you think about this? Is this a rule that really has nothing to do with nothing other than trying to get the game to move a little faster?
The pitch clock, yes. And I think the throw overs is kind of a time saver, but I also think like they're taking one part of the strategy away and adding a new one. So they're taking away the shift. So you're only going to be allowed to have two men on either side of the infield on the either side of the second base.
Right. We'll get to this
So,
in a second. Just talk to me about what do you think about the pitch clock, though? I mean, is it
well,
what is it really there for? Is it just a time thing? I mean, it serves no other purpose, right?
it doesn't, and you kind of hit the nail right out the gate on the head by saying it's not being reinforced.
It's
So
not being
what's
enforced at all. Yeah.
right? So what's the point of a rule? I mean, I'm a teacher, and understand something. If I say in the beginning of the school year, here are the rules, but I don't enforce any of them, it's called chaos. That's
Yeah.
what would happen.
I don't, I don't know.
That's the difference, is that when you don't enforce these rules, then it's just pointless. And I think that's what's gonna, and it's gonna be another argumentative situation, because if you've seen some of the things nowadays, like they have a clock that they have for challenges. So they have 4 to 5 seconds between the time that the play ends, time the call is done, to make a decision whether they want to possibly review it. Then they have 8 seconds to make a definitive decision of whether they want to review it or not. Now, look, all these times, they're all fluid, they're all subjective. The umpires can say, "Oh, to hell with you," after 2 or 3 seconds, and that's that. Um, and that has happened to the Phillies, and that makes for a lot of contentious things, a lot of contentious debates that will go on. The pitch clock is going to do that same thing. It's
Yeah,
going to
and
do that same thing.
there's a lot of rule, but no, like, what's the repercussion here? What's if you violate the rule? What is it? Is you get what's the rule? I
The
mean, what's the repercussion?
finger waving. Don't you do it again.
So anyway, so let's move on to the shift, as you mentioned. So essentially, they're trying to outlaw the shift, which I think is horrible. You know how you outlaw the shift? You teach a goddamn a batter how to hit to all fields. That's how you outlaw the shift. I mean, this is
I
so
agree.
stupid that
I
we're doing
agree.
this because we don't want to teach our youngsters, our youth, how to use all fields of the diamond. It's horrible, but anyway, four infielders must be within the outer boundary of the infield when the pitcher is on the rubber. Infielders may not switch sides. In other words, a team cannot reposition its best defender on the side of the infield. The batter is more likely to hit the ball. If the infielders are not aligned properly at the time of the pitch, the offense can choose an automatic ball, or result of the play. There you go. There's a penalty, and this rule does not preclude a team from positioning an outfielder in the infield or in the shallow outfield grass in certain situations, but it does prohibit four outfielder alignments. Joe, what do you think about the shift rule?
I think there are going to be teams that are going to skirt that rule as much as they can. You're going to see guys like the shortstop and the third baseman when there's normally like guys leaning more to the first base side. You're going to see both the shortstop and the third baseman like kind of be 2 feet apart right off of second baseline.
Yeah, because as soon as that pitch is thrown, they're all going to shift because that's what the rule says. You can go as soon as the ball is released. You just got to be in a certain spot when the pitcher's on the rubber. But it didn't say nothing about once the ball is released. So
Right.
once he goes into his motion or the ball's out of his hand, maybe they all run. I don't. It's going to be like a Chinese fire drill out there. I don't know what it's going to look like, but
It's going to look pretty. I mean, you're going to have. This is one of the things I was saying to you before we came on. The MLB seems like they're leaning some of their rule changes. the larger bases, the lack, outlawing the shift, the possibilities of like not being able to throw over more than 3 times. Like the idea that they're kind of trying to convey is similar to what the NFL did, which is they want to rest their popularity on offense. So it's going to screw pitchers. I mean, I really do feel bad for like upcoming pitchers that are going to be coming up in the next 5 years, because if this is the way that the league is going, it's just going to get worse. I mean, they're going to, if they see it selling, then they're not going to stop with just outlawing the shift and making the bases bigger. I mean, John Kruk even made like a comment. Well, why don't we just make home plate like 6 inches bigger? He's
Yeah.
like, if we're trying to increase the runs and the scoring, let's just make home plate 6 inches bigger.
That would also increase the strikes too. But as far as the shift, as I mentioned, if you want to get rid of the shift, teach your hitters how to hit the all fields.
I
Right?
agree.
That's how you get rid of the shift. I think
agree.
it's so ridiculous that this is what we're doing. That our coaches, they're not even bothering anymore to try to teach these kids how to actually play the game.
Honestly, when I had sight, I was a big gamer with MLB The Show, and when you would play the shift, when the other team would play the shift, depending on the batter, I would bunt, because I'm like, well, the third baseman's not going to get to it,
No,
and
he's
I'm
all
like,
inside the field. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like that's the price you pay, and like you have to rely either on the catcher getting up quickly enough or the pitcher being able to rotate his body and arm to have an accurate throw to first. Okay, then all I have to do is, I mean, and that's the difference, is that I agree 100% that this is basically with the shift being outlawed, you're basically saying, we don't need to teach these kids this. And it's like, okay, so you're going to be teaching kids that they only need to be one-dimensional players, one-dimensional hitters.
Home runs, all counts. And then, as you mentioned a little bit, the final rule change is going to be increasing the base size from 15 inches to 18 inches. Home plate will remain unchanged. They're saying this is a safety thing. I don't really get that at all. Whatever, but yeah. So as you know, you mentioned the umpires, and I am an umpire, and I'll make no bones of that. I'm proud of being. Remember, I got a double header.
Now, wonder I disagree with you so much.
So as an umpire, we're always on the lookout. The problem with the youth baseball is that they emulate their Major League Baseball counterparts, which is, I did the same thing when I was a kid too. But that means all these little gadgets and doodahs that the players are running around with today, these kids decide that they need them. They don't. And the one big thing, I don't know, you've seen this thing, right? The oven mitt that they wear on their hand to protect their fingers from being broken. Yeah. Well, the kids are wearing them now too. And to me, on either level, Major League or youth, it's illegal because that oven mitt gives you about 3 to 4 inches more on your hand to reach out for a base. So I tell them, the kids, take that thing off. Take it off. Because you're stealing 3 inches by having that glove on of trying to steal a base or of close play a second or third. So, yeah, at what lengths are we going to go? I mean, we're going to take it 15 to 18. What the hell is that going to do? I mean, what
is the point of this safety, though? I mean, because then if the bases are bigger, now this is the way I understood it. If the bases are bigger, that means the baselines, the base paths between first, second, and third are technically shorter. Like, so you can get a significant lead. I mean, you're going to have more stolen bases. You're going to have more people in scoring position, which means that you're technically going to have more opportunities for scoring.
What about the base path? What are you talking about the base path?
So, there's a distance between the straight line. So from the one end edge of first base to second,
it's going to make it shorter. Yeah,
from edge to edge. So it was shorten that path. And
from home to first, from first to third, the all the way around, it's going to shorten it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, it's It's I'm just trying to understand the safety thing. But I want to go back to your comment about the oven mitt because
Mhm.
I think it's not been. I don't think it's been as debated as it should be because you bring up a really good point. This is a game of inches. I
Exactly. They're
mean,
stealing about 3 inches.
yeah. I mean, pretty much any sport is about a game of inches. You can almost look at it in any way, any sport. Uh, when you have that mitt on, and that gives you 3 or 4 inches, that's an advantage.
Yep.
That I mean, I would put it on even if I didn't need it
Exactly. That's
because
exactly.
like I would just be like, oh, I don't want to break my hand. Can I have the
Yeah.
oven mitt?
Yeah.
Like, but here's the other thing. I worked in the kitchen for 10 years. I've handled like industrial oven mitts. If I jammed my fingers by accident, I wouldn't do it intentionally, but jammed my fingers into like an oven door, that oven mitt's not going to stop me from breaking my fingers.
Now, you're right. I'm sure I've never actually seen the inside. I think it's a little reinforced. Maybe with a. I don't. I think there might be some hard plastic in there. I'm not sure. I use the oven mitt analogy because that's what it looks like to me.
Right.
Freaking oven mitt,
No.
but I'm not certain what the construction. I think there's like some molded plastic inside to keep it nice and straight. But my point is, if you put your hand in it, there's a gap between your fingers and the top of that glove, that
Mhm.
mitt. You're right, and it steals a few inches. And I tell the kids, take it off. You're not Bryce Harper. You're not making $13 million a year. Take that damn thing off. Oh, and by the way, take the Oakley sunglasses and the stupid ass arm sleeves off too. Your distraction. I tell them, take all that crap off, man. This ain't Game 7 of the World Series, all right? And you ain't making $1 million. I'm getting paid, but you're not. So get the crap off. So that's just how I roll.
I mean, listen, and this explains a lot about how you kind of go about things. Being an umpire, you go, hey, this is how it's going to be done. Okay, so
Now I
now
challenge you
this
guys.
explains a lot.
Come out and watch me up a game. It's definitely family entertainment. It's entertainment for all. It's for all the kids. Fall ball starts tomorrow, and looking forward to a next 2 months before I start refing. I'm a hockey ref too, so um,
Oh God,
yeah,
good grief!
it's great. It's great stuff. All right,
I
listen,
so I played hockey, both
yeah.
juniors. Like I actually auditioned or tried out for junior flyers
Oh,
back
really?
when they still were around. But eh, it's interesting because the coach and the mentor that I had there was like, man, refs really must know your name because I was not a scorer. I was a grinder.
There you go.
I was kind of like the bully guy in on the thing, dropping the gloves and everything like that. The guy who actually I played with, why am I blanking on his name? He actually played for the Flyers for a little bit, and then he wound up playing. I'm not kidding. He made the cut. I didn't and he played 18 years in the NHL, and I'm like, damn, I was
Oh,
that close. But yeah, me and refs in hockey have never looked eye to eye.
it's fun,
So,
man. It's fun. It keeps you young, keeps the blood flowing,
oh
man.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
so Joe, I'm gonna give you a little update here on the standings. I kind of overspoke. Right now, the Phillies are tied with the Padres for that virtual. They're not virtual, but they're legitimately tied. So if the Padres lose tonight, the Phillies would then move a half a game ahead. They are ahead now because of the tiebreaker. So my scenario of Phillies Mets would not necessarily work out tonight. We would end up still playing well, actually we'd be playing the Cardinals if the season were to end um, today, whatever. But whatever. I can hope and dream. We still got some baseball left. So
I think actually the Cardinals, if we do wind up playing them in the playoffs, I think that we brought it up the last time. What would be the more favorable matchup? I
that'd
think
be
the
definitely
Cardinals.
yeah.
I think the
Absolutely.
Cardinals.
All right. All right. So let me pay some bills and let's get up on out of here. Of course, this is the schedule here. A busy Matty B Friday night. I was on earlier with my show, giving you my fantastic NFL and Eagles predictions for the season. And then tomorrow, the Patterson Fanatics will be able to see Joe Marks, Dave Yarnell, and the rest of the guys tomorrow at 9:00. And don't forget me right after the Phillies national game tomorrow night. And then Sunday is chock filled of Eagles, and more Eagles as we get ready to kick off the 2022 NFL season. And if you are having a good weekend, and then hopefully things are going well, and hopefully the Eagles do win, but if they don't, and you kind of take a turn for the worse on Sunday afternoon, don't forget, if you have questions of workman's comp, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, criminal law, Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300 is the man to call. Tell him the boys at EOP sent you. And then don't forget, this thing here is my actual original podcast, Talking Philly Sports with Matty V. 3 times a week, we usually drop new shows. We're doing a show tomorrow. I do a show every year during the Eagle season. We do a pregame show every year, and Kyle Quinn will be joining me for his 3rd straight season of cutting up the Eagles on my pregame show every week. So be sure to be looking out for that. And and Kyle, our 3rd year together doing it. So that's pretty much going to wrap me up. Joe, do you have anything final you want to say before we wrap it down or shut it down?
Let's go Eagles. Let's go Phils. And join me tomorrow for Eagles Eve.
Said Eagles Eve. That's all I got. And I think we're done, but I think we're missing one thing. I read the K. What you got?